Okay, everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Michael Schwartz. I'm with Gun Owners Radio, and this is Lead Talks, where we reach out to firearms instructors in San Diego, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County, anywhere in Orange or in Southern California, and we have them have the firearms instructors come and talk to you about something particularly interesting. That way, you get to know more instructors, you get to train with more people. If you're not doing any training at all, you get to vet out some firearms instructors and see who you want to take some classes from. It's our whole goal is for you to hear something interesting, relate to an instructor, and then make an appointment and go train with them. And today is Jason Martin. Jason Martin is with Practical is Tactical. And he is a USCCA certified firearms instructor, a post certified firearms instructor, an NRA certified firearms instructor, and a veteran and an all around really great guy. Today, Jason's subject is going to be how to pick out a firearm, which is, I got to tell you, it can be a particularly tricky subject. And I think it's an excellent listen, whether you have never owned a gun or own one gun or own 2 dozen guns. I think that there is something to be learned here. So, Jason, thank you so much, man. I'm going to turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike, and thanks for the invite, and hello to the world out there. I'm out here at Miramar, so if anybody hears any kind of aircraft coming over, well, I'm sorry, but it's as effect is what Mike put it. So the topic today is how to choose the right firearm. So again, my name is Jason Martin. I am an instructor here in San Diego County, and I do CCW instructing, and I do regular firearms instructing basics all the way up from the beginning all the way up to the end. You get what you need. I also work part time at a gun shop up in Fallbrook, Fallbrook Guns and Ammo. And so the combo between the instructing and the working at the gun shop, I really get into this mode on a daily basis of individuals coming in looking for a gun. And so I thought this would be a great topic because I see lots of people that show up to my classes that have brand new guns that they just purchased and they want to put it on their CCW permit. And I'll ask them, when did you get that? And they say, oh, I just picked it up yesterday. So you haven't shot a single round through it and you're going to go qualify and defend your life with this particular weapon. Roger that. The other half of that story is when I work inside of the gun shop, I get people coming in all the time. They're looking for different firearms, which is good, when you have people come up and say, "Hey, I'd like to buy a firearm," but the choices can be daunting because somebody's buddy may have said, "Oh, you need to get the old 45," or "My cop buddy told me this," or "My husband's guys at work, who's a real big gun guy, they said I should buy this particular firearm." And so I have to look at the individuals, and I try to be objective, and I need to be honest with them, and so sometimes I can be brutally honest, and my brutal honesty is trying to get you, the individual who are trying to buy a firearm, is to be brutally honest with yourself. you know why am I buying the firearm? Am I buying it because I want to have fun with it and just learn to shoot and have an additional hobby? Am I buying it for self-defense, or am I doing it as a combo? These all make a big difference. Then you have to get into the honest answers of, do you have any physical limitations? Do you have arthritic hands? Do you have nerve damages? Do you have manual dexterity type issues? All these different things. Everybody's hand sizes are different. So does my hand fit the gun that I'm looking at? What guns are we doing? So it creates different challenges. If somebody says they're going to conceal carry a firearm, or their goal is to eventually do that, the next questions are: have you thought about where you're going to carry that particular firearm? So again, these are all important questions that you, the actual purchaser, needs to actually review yourself and be honest with yourself. As a gun shop salesperson, I would love for you to buy one for each. However, I do feel guilty if an individual buys something, which I see all the time. Individuals will come in and say, "Well, I just bought this at such and such, and it's not really what I wanted. What can I do with it?" It's not much. I always tell my customers, I say, if you don't use it, You're not, if you can't shoot it right or you don't like how it feels, you're not going to shoot it. And as all the other instructors and teachers have gotten onto this lead talks have talked about, is getting you out there and training with that particular firearm. Because if you're going to use it to defend your life, you need to be reliant on it. You need to understand it and have a good understanding of it. So, picking the firearm. One, go to a shop that has a good selection. Two, try to make sure that the salesperson you talk to asks these hard questions. Are they honest with you? Are they willing to spend time with you to work out these little fine details? Ask, don't take just what they carry. One nice thing that we have here in San Diego County is that we have a lot of indoor ranges that offer rental guns for people to go try. So if you've never shot a firearm before, those are excellent places to go and actually take a friend and go rent a gun or two guns or three guns and give them a try. If you need an instructor, those ranges can arrange somebody, or you can go talk to somebody like me who will take you out and let you try different firearms. I don't think there's a single instructor that would not help a new shooter get in and buy something that they're actually going to use. So simple stories that I can get and that come in from time to time is, I get a new shooter that says, "Hey, I shot this kind of gun and I really, really liked it, so I want to buy this." Okay, so you pull out the particular firearm and you let them try it out, and you're watching them handle it, and it's just not working right. So a good example is I had a lady and her husband come in the other day to the shop, and they wanted to. She said, "I want a 45." Okay, that's nice, and I don't want to hold her, not believe that she's never not shot that particular firearm. So I said, "Have you ever shot a 45?" And she said, "Yes, I have." I said, "Okay, cool. What kind of 45 did you shoot?" "Well, I don't really remember." So I pulled out a couple of 45s and I let her hold it, and there was something just not right about that. And she said, "This is really heavy." And all of them, she said it was really heavy. The other thing I noticed was that how she was holding the firearm, and I said, "Do you have a physical problem?" And she said, "Yes, I had, she says, "I have nerve damage on my right side, so I don't have full control of my right side of my body." I said, "Okay, so somebody told you that you wanted to get an automatic, but let's see if you can actually manipulate the automatic." She was not able to do it efficiently, but she really, really wants a gun because she really wanted to help defend herself. I suggested a revolver. So we went through a few different revolvers. And she said, "Wow, that's amazing. I've been to four gun shops and not a single person has made this suggestion to me about this." I said, "But I'd really like to shoot one before." I said, so I made a recommendation. They went down the street. They're looking for a different firearm. I would rather a customer be happy and go get what they wanted that they can actually use and then come back to me. Now, we here in California, I was just recently in Yuma, Arizona, and I walked into a couple gun shops over there, and holy cow, man, I couldn't imagine being a new gun owner walking into one of those gun shops trying to pick out a gun. Everything you could possibly imagine. For a person like myself and most of the gun owners, that's like walking into Valhalla. We walk into a California gun store. The nice thing is that we have smaller selections, mostly because of the roster. The downside of our selections are, of course, is that a lot of the newer guns that for people that have physical disabilities are not available here in California. So it makes those nuances, like working with that gal with the problem with her right hand. I knew different types of firearms that she could work and would be really easy, but they're not here on the roster in California. So we had to, you know, we have to recognize this. Now, granted, we have more and more guns coming onto the roster here in California, If anybody has ever heard that the AR-15 is the erector set of the rifle, well, I have to say that SIG has most definitely become the erector set of the pistol world. Whether you want a full size in the 320 series or a compact size in the 365 series, you can pretty much modify those guns to whichever type of shooting style you have, because there are a lot of different grips out there that you can change those guns to. And there's nothing wrong with that. Making the gun fit you is what you're trying to do. Because again, if you're not comfortable shooting it, you're not going to shoot it. And if you don't shoot it, you're not going to be able to use it to defend your life or those of anybody around you, or even enjoy going out just to the range and plinking with it. Heavier guns tend to shoot better because they absorb more recoil. Smaller guns tend to be snappier, but they're easier to conceal. All questions and things that you need to consider when you're actually buying a firearm and that's why when I said at the beginning is that when you go to pick your firearm, you have to be honest with yourself. What is the intended purpose of this particular firearm? The other half is that can I take it out and shoot it efficiently? And this is where going out and test driving some firearms really works out. Again, going to the indoor ranges, picking it out, trying them out. We want to make sure that the firearm fits our hands because everybody has different size hands. We want to be able to get a good solid grip on it. Does the firearm have safety on it? Can my thumb effectively reach the safety on the firearm? Does it have an exposed hammer or is it a striker firearm? Is it double action? Is it single action? A double action firearm, if you're prone to arthritis, a double action firearm on the first round may not necessarily be a good choice. How stiff is the slide? Can you actually manipulate the slide on the firearm? This one, brings to mind like the Smith & Wesson Shield. Excellent firearm. They shoot awesome, but holy cow, that has got to be the hardest slide to manipulate on a firearm. Absolutely horrendous spring on it. You have to really work that slide and have to have some manual strength. Most gunsmiths and shops, they can cut a coil or two out of the spring to try to loosen it up, and you can shoot a lot of rounds through it, but it just you're going to be in trouble. Glocks, they have easy slides on them, but a lot of people with smaller hands just can't just don't like the grip on the Glock. I mean, even me with my big hands, I even modified the grip on my Glocks just to contour the grip a little bit better to make it. And I love carrying my Glock 19. Even on my own personal firearms, of all the choices I have, when I was trying to pick out the guns that I carry on a regular basis, I've got a Glock 43X, I got a Hellcat, OSP, and 365, and I ended up taking and shooting about 500 rounds through each one of them and ended up selling the Glock 43X and ended up selling the Springfield Hellcat. I loved the 365. So for me, my primary carry guns would be either my Shield, just a standard Shield, my 365, or my Glock 19. And lately I've been carrying the 19 a lot because I find I have a much smoother draw with it. I can get a draw out easy and I can conceal it just as easy as my 365. So these are the things that you think about when you actually go purchase the firearm. Even during most of my classes, I primarily teach and do live fire demonstrations with my Glock 19. I recently got a Springfield Hellcat Pro. Love the gun. Had to do a couple little mods to it to make it personalized to me as far as the comfort on shooting it. And right now I've got about 1,500 rounds for it, and I still have not added it to my permit. Not because I don't like the gun, but because I want to make sure that the gun is comfortable to not only carry, but that I can actually function it the way I need to efficiently as well as I can my 19. So I'm probably going to put at least another 1,000 to 2,000 rounds to that gun before I even consider adding it to my concealed weapons permit. Now, don't always think about I keep hearing a lot of people when they talk about revolvers. I have nothing against revolvers, and I think revolvers are awesome guns. Matter of fact, I have a large collection of revolvers. I love heavy caliber revolvers. However, some of the advanced training that I've been to, most of the advanced trainers will just call a revolver an advanced shooter gun. You have to think to yourself, why would a revolver that's such a simplistic mechanisms on it be an advanced shooter gun? The majority of the reason is because the grip. That's because where do you put your fingers? How do you hold it? The sights on most concealed carryable and smaller revolvers, the sights are not necessarily right on there. So you have to shoot a revolver a little bit more to learn that particular firearm. However, as I can point out to people, if you're not honest with yourself, as if you're planning to use it for a self-defense particular firearm, taking a revolver, the learning curve on just how to shoot somebody at 3 yards away, or even your target, is pretty simple. Point and shoot, pull the trigger, and hope that you hit your target. And more than likely, you're going to hit it at that distance. Extremely easy to use a revolver, and I can teach people how to use it effectively at close ranges. When you start getting farther ranges away, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. The new buzz now is optics. Do I want to do an optic on my firearm or do I not? Again, I love optics. Getting older, even my own sight is becoming nearsighted. The optic is awesome. It helps me focus on a single point and be consistent. Except during classes, when we're doing fast fire drills and getting showing people, I ask people and say, okay, after we've done those rounds of shots, how many people remember where their dot was? Did you even see your dot when you were shooting? So I think John Korea has been on the San Diego Gun Owners a couple of times and stuff. He's a great. Even he talks about all of the dots are great, but do we really need the dots? If you're primary target shooting and just having fun, awesome. Dots do make us more efficient shooters. So I recently took a class with the Escondido police trainers for red dots, and they talked about the more and more departments starting to add red dots to their firearms. They found that officers were shooting less rounds and having higher hits when they used red dot optics. So when we get here in California, there's a lot of guns that are not equipped with cuts to add optics. So you have to additionally add more money to your particular firearm to add an optic. Luckily, we do have a lot of handguns now coming onto the market that have optic cuts on them so that you can already put it. But if you have a legacy firearms, you need to get them cut. I mean, just here in San Diego County, we have a great cutter. You know, he's been on the show a few times. He's quick turnaround. He cuts just about every manufacturer's slide, turn it around with excellent time. So there's always an option if you decide you want to add an optic to your firearm. I can also find that when I teach people, new shooters, they can generally pick up the dot faster than learning how to align the iron sights. So those are all great things to really consider. Now, I could keep going on here. So let's do some, Mike, I don't know, want to do some Q&A here? Attention, there we go.
Oops. Yep. Yeah, you got some great questions here too. Let's start with okay, what's the best firearm for someone new to guns?
So that goes back to my original statement. The best firearm is, of course, what is your intended use?
Yeah.
You know, are you self-defense? Are you all the above? Do you want to just brand new shooter? Do I just want to learn? You know, the best gun for a new shooter is the one that you can use that fits you best.
You know, something I do, Jason, is uh when people ask me that question, I get that question a lot, and I don't think people have really thought through as much as maybe they don't even know what to think through, you know. So they haven't really thought through like exactly all the nuances. So a lot of times when I take people to shoot for the first time, or when I'm at a gun shop, and I start with a Glock 19 and work out from there. Or I tell them start with a Glock 19 and work out from there. Because if that's kind of your base, like if it fits and you think, hey, this is great, then great. You have a very popular firearm that a lot of people like, a lot of accessories. But if not, there's a lot of ways to work out from a Glock 19. If the grip is too big, great. There's a handgun very similar to a Glock 19 with a better grip, you know? And just kind of, I don't know, what do you think about that? Is that,
So I kind of do similar, but what I might do is one, maybe the first question is, what's your intended goal? I
yeah,
usually always start with that question, and then that kind of gets the deer in the headlights look initially. And then you just take it from there. And like the Glock 19, so I'll probably pull out a Glock 17, a Glock 19, a couple of SIGs. I'll just pull out a whole bunch of different firearms and I'll let them touch it, and then I'll see them. And then the next set is I want to see if somebody can actually work the slide. You
yeah,
take the magazine out. Can you work and manipulate the slide? Do you have the manual dexterity for it? And I kind of let the individual figure out what works best for them from that perspective. And then from there, we can then get into the nuances that, well, if you're just planning on going target shooting, and you're not in the 52 to 65 cents around, you're more in the, I want to shoot the 28 to 35 cents around, probably a Glock 17 would be a good choice. Or even down into the, maybe a little bit more, you get into the 320s. I think now we're waiting ambitiously for the HKs to start showing up, and a new batch of M&Ps. The M&Ps are excellent firearms. I'm so glad they brought those back to California. The M&Ps, the grips on them are just configurable straight out of the box. You get a good gun. The triggers are awesome. And the slides on the new M&P 2.0s are really nice. So I'm kind of excited about those getting added back.
good. Well, you were talking about the roster and you were talking about shields and you were talking about manipulating the slide. Real quick side note is our lawsuit, the Rena lawsuit, which is trying to get rid of the roster. Lana Rena, the named plaintiff in that lawsuit, she couldn't she had issues with her grip, and she couldn't rack this a slide on anything that she found until she went out of state, went to a gun shop, and I believe Pennsylvania, found a Shield EZ, which the slide's much easier to manipulate, and then came back to California and said, okay, that's how I can defend myself with this tool. And California said, nope, can't have that tool. So that was the beginning of that lawsuit. Just as an interesting side note. Um, Okay, Daniel Gore wants to know. I hope you said your last name right there, Daniel. Is the indoor range better than the outdoor range?
For me, I enjoy shooting at outdoor ranges, mostly because I can hear better. I don't like the overpressure inside of indoor ranges. However, none of the outdoor ranges offer rental firearms in that rental experience. And here, even though in San Diego County we have a number of outdoor ranges, we have more indoor ranges than outdoor. I mean, we have more indoor ranges here in San Diego County than Riverside does, and Riverside is a larger county. So I certainly would not thumb my nose if that's all you had available to you. Go to the indoor range. If you have the opportunity for an outdoor range, like we do up in North County, go to the outdoor range.
Okay, let's see. Another question. The newer pistols on the roster are smaller, more concealable, which is nice for CCW, but they're not as comfortable to shoot in a full day class. Does Jason have any suggestions on how to deal with that? For short training sessions, the 365 is okay, but for a whole day, it would be painful.
There's a lot of truth to that statement. I did a class last year with my 365, and we shot over 500 rounds in that class in an 8-hour day. And not only that is I like to ride with my grip high up on the slide, and that slide gets really hot when you're shooting it. So I think SIG and even Springfield with the macro series, which will eventually come onto the market, or you can buy the macro setups and transferring your 365, you can get a much larger gun, or you can just go straight into the Hellcat Pro. I really like the Hellcat Pro. I think that's a great gun for its price point. It's on par with the Macro, and in that particular firearm, it's large enough. It has a larger grip, and it's not as heavy as a 19 or a 17, but it is a good long shooting gun. As far as if you wanted to actually do a class with it, you could safely and comfortably do a long class with that particular firearms.
Jason, people ask me fairly often what gun, if you could have any gun, any off-roster gun, what would it be? Of course, the Hellcat is now on the roster thanks to some legal decisions, but the Hellcat was always my answer. I haven't actually shot one yet. I've held one, but I got to tell you, I'm not even sure why I like it so much. I think that Springfield's marketing just got into me, and but man, one of these days I got to get a Hellcat, so I'll have to come up to Fallbrook and have you show it off to me and
Yeah.
buy a Hellcat from you.
Yeah, so the Hellcat, like I said, I had to run the original Hellcats when they first came out before they came out with the Pro. And myself personally, I didn't much care for it. I thought it was a really snappy gun for its size. However, I've had plenty of students that really love it. Myself, I chose the 365 with the 365 with the X grip. So the grip is a little bit longer. So I switched out the grip to a little bit bigger grip on my 365. And I felt SIG handles the recoil much better. Granted, adding the grip and the cost of the firearm added a couple $100 to it, but the Hellcat Pro, I love that gun. I really like that gun. So again, it goes back to take it out and try it, see what you like.
Yeah.
If you have a buddy that has one, let them shoot it, put some mags through it, and really work that firearm and see how you like it.
Here's a good question. This is from YouTube, somebody watching on YouTube. Do I really need more than ball ammo for self-defense? It's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked that.
Now, so as I talk about in my classes, we pick self-defense rounds, hollow points to use the phrase. But the majority of us end up shooting ball ammo. And I can tell people when you go out on the range is try it out. See if your rounds print differently with the hollow points versus the ball. But from a self-defense perspective, we want to make sure the bullets stay in our target and create good wound cavities. Ball ammo doesn't necessarily create a good wound cavity, and you run the risk of over penetration causing potential harm to those standing behind your potential target. So I think there's still one state, maybe two states left in the union that only allow full metal jacket ammo. I think it's New Jersey still has that holdover that you
Really?
can't use. Yeah. So, but if all you had
Okay.
was ball, blast away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no one, I don't get shot by anything, but
Nobody wants an extra hole in them.
Rick Cohen, he wants to know what are your thoughts? Hang on one second here. What are your thoughts on optics with respect to co-witness?
So that one is like one of those dreadful. I need to get my gun cut, then I need to buy my optic, and then now I need to buy the sight, and then I need to figure out which site to co-witness with it. And I myself got into that battle when I first started getting in it. Next thing I ended up finding I'm having these sails on the front of my gun that get caught on just about everything, trying to figure it out. And it's frustrating because now it's like, am I focusing on the dot or am I focusing on the sight? So again, this falls into what we find is that the average person, when they get into some type of engagement with the firearm or using it, generally they're not picking up that front sight post. They're just picking that dot out almost immediately. So if your battery goes out, it's kind of funny you brought up that question because I had an Escondido police officer come into the shop just the other day, and he said he had to draw his weapon, and he brought it up, And they use Glock 34s with the Trigicom RMRs on their weapons. And he said, "Holy S, my dot was empty." And he didn't have super high co-witness sights on his firearm. So that's one of those cases where, yeah, I think a co-witness sight that would have worked out. And luckily he's a good enough shooter, and he didn't have to actually use his firearm. But that was his oh crap moment about that setup.
Interesting. Okay, let's see. From Old Cratch on YouTube, leather, kydex, or hybrid for concealed carry. And he also would like to hear what your favorite brands and models are.
I'd say yes.
All the above.
All the above. Obviously, they all have their pros and cons. Leather looks better, smells better. It's going to mold to your body better, but over time it's going to start to loosen up, and it won't have the same weapons retention. It's a little bit nicer on the finish of your firearm in the long run. Kydex is a little hard on it, but having done this now for a few years, almost every Kydex holster that I bought 3 years ago they all need to be replaced because I've tightened the screws on them so much and replaced the bushings. They don't have the same retention level anymore. As far as brands and models, that's going to fall down to personal choice. I mean, I use Crossbreed. There's a guy that makes them up in Marietta, 951 Tactical. He does an excellent job, and he just works out of his garage. So yeah,
Anything in particular you'd warn against, or is it really truly just totally personal preference?
um, I tried Alien Gear for a while. They have great marketing, but I was not very impressed with their a lot of their backings, and because they use a lot of neoprene. Um, I'm starting to get more people in the class that have like the belly band type holsters.
Oh, really? How are those working out?
Actually, I think they work out really, really well. The negative on them is most of them is once you draw the firearm, they don't retain a holster anymore. So when you go to put it back in the holster, you have to be really careful so as don't put another hole in yourself.
Yeah,
Another good holster that's been coming out is the Filster Enigma. You know that that
I'm
one
here.
is. Go
I'm
ahead.
hearing a lot about that as well. A lot of people like that. I'm hearing more and more good reviews on that.
Yeah, because that one is, if you're prone to wearing sweatpants or gym clothes, or you just really don't want to wear a belt, it's its own system. So you can just kind of strap that on. And what's interesting is a lot of their holster design, they use more of a universal holster that keys off of your flashlight. So you have a larger firearm, so it keys off the model of your flashlight. That's how it retains your weapon into the holster. Like for women, I've had a couple of gals, they wear those. They really like that because they don't want to wear a belt, and they haven't really had to change their clothing style very much for that.
Interesting. What's your opinion on the new guns? And I kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe there's anything you want to add. What's your opinion on the new guns on the roster? What's each one good for, not good for? SIG P320, SIG 365, Hellcat, Shield Plus.
Oh, wow, that's a big question
It
there.
is a big question. That's a bigger question I thought it was at first. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a kind of a. Um, I think most of the smaller guns are really, in the 365, Springfield, Shield, the Shield. Most of those firearms are really more geared towards the concealed carrier than they are the everyday shooter. The 320, now I've seen some people carry the 320, and they get away with it perfectly fine. And the 320 is a really nice firearm. Uh, I would guess if I had to choose between those for an everyday shooter and a carry, like for example, like I said, I carry a Glock 19. It's an awesome gun. I can take it and go out and shoot in a range and just have fun with it, and still at the same time use it as my concealed carry gun. It's a versatile firearm. So I think the 320 would fall under that category as a versatile firearm versus the other ones are more strictly for that self-defense type shooting.
things really have changed. That it's last 10, 15 years, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but the last 10, 15 years or so, it's been all about conceal carry, with, which is, it's obvious why, with all the CCWs being issued across the country, not just in California, but across the country. But I remember when I bought my Glock 19 in the 90s, that was considered small. Like a
Yeah.
Glock 19 was a concealable, compact, little tiny, well, not little, but or not little tiny, but little gun. And then they got even smaller. And now a Glock 19 is too big for some people, which I think is kind of a funny development.
Well, I think that's obviously that's kind of market driven, but it's also, in reality, the perception, and I think you've talked about this some on the Gun Owners Radio, the media hyping up, depending on which side you're listening to, hyping up the different levels of violence or creating an uneasy feeling in people on their for defense. Versus if we actually look at the crime statistics over the last 20 years, crime has actually gone down, and
Yeah.
it's made a steady decrease down. But the demand for concealed carry, and I think because we've had what 29 states now that have constitutional carry, and almost every state has some form of concealed carry. Us as Americans are exercising those rights, and I think the market's fitting that bill by looking at what people want. At the same time, we're going from the smaller 365s. Now we're starting to move back up again, with all the macros and everybody's getting back into that mid-size type of concealed carry firearm. So it's very interesting watching it all.
Yeah. Yes, it is. All right, let's see here. Um, Daniel Gore wants to know, will the leather start to smell when you sweat?
Yes, it will, Dan. It will smell. It'll
Any any
retain
any tips on how to prevent that or anything?
um, leather cleaner.
Yeah.
Pull it off and clean it up with leather.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, that was perfect. I really do think this is a subject that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's kind of a subject that there's no end. Like we could talk about this. Some of this is objective, but most of this is very subjective.
Yep.
I think that the idea you have of starting with your purpose is probably that's good advice, whether you're buying, a firearm or a wrench or an axe or any tool
Yep.
or a car or whatever you're purchasing is, ultimately what's the end purpose. I also think they're said at the end of the day, if you're a gun owner or if you want to be a gun owner and there's a gun out there that you just have to have, even if it's totally impractical, even if you can't carry it or whatever, if it's something you just have to have because of the aesthetics or the history or you saw it on a movie, get the gun. The only way to scratch that itch is to buy that
Right.
gun.
Or if you're at the range and somebody offers you to shoot it, take them up on it.
There you go.
All right, go buy more ammo and shoot it. I mean, I don't think I've ever been to a range where somebody's not offered you to shoot. If you were looking at something, somebody's not offered you to shoot a few rounds through their firearm because everybody's proud of what they bought. Hey, look what I bought. Try this out.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like something really stupid high end, but but I've even had guys with infinities, the full 10K plus infinities say, here, you try it out. Like, okay, I won't look twice on that one. So
Actually, a couple more questions just came in. Um, Old Cratch wants to know, cross-eye dominant, should I learn to shoot pistols left-handed? Should I try to correct my dominance or keep shooting cross-eye?
huh, that's an interesting question there too. So I would say if you're a new shooter, then you know there is techniques to do where you can cover that other eye and start to train your primary side to actually start getting into and learning how to do that. Optics really helps it because with an optic shooting, you don't shoot with any eye closed. You shoot with both eyes open. Most people, when I still see them, you can tell if they're a new shooter, they start looking through the optic and they start closing that eye. Like, keep your eye open. So that's a good way of helping those cross-eye dominant is if they go with an optic, they don't have to worry about it. Just hold the gun straight out in front of you. Which that's also a good thing is that a lot of people have the old Weaver stances or the modified isosceles type shooting. But if any good instructor will tell you square up on the target, get the gun in the center of your body, and it'll start to eliminate that cross-eye dominance.
Nice. Good advice. And then lastly, gun websites wants to know, what does CCW look like in 10 years?
Well, we could have the Santa Claus list where we are just like a driver's license where we can drive from coast to coast with our state permit and not have to worry about it. That's what we hope for. Well, but then we've got our other list where we've got the current election coming up and we don't know. I mean, if the other side wins, gets at least one or two changes on the SCOTUS, we may be set back another 30 to 40 years. Get out and vote, people.
I think that's a good point. The hope is that, if things keep going the way they are, which is in a very good direction. I've said this before. If you don't mind me weighing in on this question
Go
too,
for it.
Jason. This is the last couple of years, the first time in a decade of plus of activism where I really truly see a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's bright, and it's not a train coming at you. It's a real true bright light at the end of the tunnel, and things look really, really good. I think that there will be, I mean, if you just look since 2017, San Diego has gone from 1,100 CCWs to over 20,000. Um, you know, we're going to get into the tens of thousands. We're already in the tens of thousands. We're going to get, 30, 40, 50,000. It's just going to continue to grow. Just to get to average, we need to hit about 150,000, 150,000. And Riverside's doing the same thing. San Bernardino, Orange, they're all doing the same thing. That is causing a change in culture for the positive. When you are normalizing what the rest of the country sees as normal behavior, what is normal American behavior, and that is your ability to defend yourself when you're outside of the home. When people start to see that and get used to it, that normalizes culture in the same way the culture was changed back in the 90s when all the horrible gun laws came in, and we basically lost a generation of gun owners. So I'm meeting people in their 30s, 40s, 50s who went their entire adult life without being exposed to firearms at all and think it's really exotic to be able to carry a firearm. When the reality is, we were extremely odd here in San Diego and in California for not being able to own firearms in certain configurations, not being able to carry firearms for protection. We were the weird ones. So hopefully, if things continue, uh, it's going to be an extremely normal thing to be able to defend yourself outside of the home. And I hope technology continues to improve and come out with new, different choices. I hope that different communities continue to grow as far as gun ownership, minorities, women, LGBT, all these different communities that maybe disagree on other political issues, but agree that self-defense is important. And the more that we get over the hump of, an irrational fear of an inanimate object that just happens to be the most effective self-defense tool ever created, the better. The sooner we get over all that, the safer people will be. And you were talking, Jason, about how the crime numbers have come down in the same period when personal protection has improved. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a cause and effect. But anyway, I really truly see a positive effect. But Jason, you are absolutely right. We are always one election away from a generation of setbacks. So, like you said, get out and vote. I don't know if people in San Diego don't really have, people in California don't really have much say as far as what happens on the federal level. It is what it is. It's kind of out of our control. But man, there are school boards and city councils and mayors and county board and state senators and assembly. There is a whole ton of local elections that you can actually make an effect. You can actually have a positive effect. You can actually get people elected. You sitting there listening to me could be the difference between someone being elected and not being elected. So I hope everybody concentrates on that. Check out our voter guide, check out our volunteer page, and get involved.
Yep.
All right, Jason, I mean to take over there, but
Oh, that's perfect. That's a good segue.
yeah, that got me all fired up. So I think that's let's see. Yep, I think we're out of questions. So Jason, thank you so much, man. That was an excellent talk. I really appreciate all the information. How do people get a hold of you?
You can reach me through my website, practicalistactical.com, or you can stop by Fallbrook Guns up in Fallbrook if you're wanting to venture all the way into the Northern Territories to get your avocados or attend to some of the wineries up there.
Or
But
eat
yeah,
some barbecue across the
or,
street, right?
or eat some barbecue across the street. We have two barbecue places in their little town of Fallbrook. So excellent little town for a day visit.
There you go. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate your time. And thank you everybody for watching. We'll be back every Monday, 7 p.m. with a brand new instructor and a brand new